everyone. My name is Lindsay Cristelli. I'm the co-creator and illustrator of the Krampus in the Corner book and plush toy. And we originally made it as a Kickstarter project and had the plush manufactured, but today I'm going to show you how to make your very own Krampus plush. So, what you're going to need is a pre-printed fabric panel. You can get this at the link below. Polyfill stuffing, some good sharp scissors, straight pins, a needle for hand sewing the stuffing holes closed and finishing it, matching thread, and something sharp to turn the corners, a chopstick or a dowel or a skewer. This is an intermediate project, probably a 3 or 4 out of 5. Not too many steps, but lots of parts. So not for a total beginner. So let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is cut out all of your pieces on the black dotted lines. We'll be working on the arms, legs, ears, and tail at the same time since they're basically all done the same way. Start by pinning the front and back pieces together, right sides facing. Do that for both legs, arms, both ears, and the tail. Now you use a straight stitch to sew them together. Make sure to use a back stitch at the beginning and end so the seams don't come undone, and try to stay as close as you can to the edge without going into the white border. When all of the arm, leg, tail, and ear pieces are sewn, you'll need to trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch. Then clip the outer corners and the inner curves at the blue marking lines. This will help the seams lay correctly when turning them right side out. Using a wooden dowel or some other long pointy tool like a knitting needle, turn each piece right side out. Next, you're going to stuff the ears and the tail with polyester fiberfill stuffing. The arms and legs will be stuffed later. I like to work with small pieces, pushing them into the ends with the dowel and working my way up. Next, we're going to pin the openings flat. Make sure there's no stuffing in the seams. This will make it easier to stitch through when you're sewing it onto the body. You'll repeat this for both ears and the unstuffed arm pieces. The legs are pinned a bit differently. You'll need to pin the top opening flat, but at a right angle to the seam line. Match the front and back seams and pin flat, making sure the edges of the design match up. Pin the tail to the bottom center of the back torso piece, matching the edges of the design. You'll do the same with the legs. Pin the legs to the bottom of the front torso piece, with the front of the legs and the right side of the torso together. Center each leg between the center markings and the bottom corner of the design. Sew the tail on with a straight stitch, and then repeat with the legs. Next, we're going to pin the ears to the front of the torso, placing them between the two small black dots. Repeat this for the other ear. The arms are attached in a similar fashion, placing them between the shoulder and the small black dot. Now we're going to make a Krampus sandwich. Fold the arms and legs into the center of the torso, away from the outer seam lines. Fold the tail under and place the back torso on top of the front torso. Pin the outer edges together along the sides and the top, leaving the bottom open for stuffing and turning. Sew together. You might want to go slowly with this step since you'll not only be sewing the torso together, but also attaching the arms and ears. You'll also be sewing the horns and neck, which are small and curved, so be careful and go slowly with those. When you're done, trim the seams to 1/8 of an inch and clip the curves at the blue markings. Turn the head and torso right side out. Now your floppy little Krampus is starting to look like plush. Stuff the head and torso, starting with the horns and working your way down. When you're done, fold the white seam allowance under and pin the stuffing hole closed. This seam is closed by hand. You can use an overcast stitch, ladder stitch, or whichever hand sewing technique you're comfortable with. Next, stuff the arms and legs. Pin the openings closed and sew the seams shut by hand. For Krampus's nose, fold and pin the piece in half and then sew along the long edge. Trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch, turn right side out, and stuff. Now you're going to fold under the raw edge so none of the white is visible, and pin it into place. And pin to the center of his face between his eyes. Next, you'll sew it on by hand with an overcast or a whip stitch. Next, we're going to work on his basket. Pin and sew the front and back pieces together, leaving the top and part of the bottom open where marked. Trim the side and bottom seams to 1/8 of an inch and clip the bottom corners. Don't trim the top seam allowance yet, but do clip the blue marking lines. This will let the seam curve when you sew it onto the top piece. Pin the basket sides to the top piece, matching the center and side markings and making sure that the designs match up. Sew together. I like to go slowly here since it's all one big curved seam. Trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch, turn right side out, stuff, and sew the opening closed. The basket is attached with 3 small stitches, one on each side and one in the bottom center. Pin into place and then sew on by hand. The last step is sewing his birch branch whip. Sew the front and back right sides together. Trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch. Clip the blue markings, and then turn, stuff, and sew the opening closed. It's attached to the hand in a similar way that the basket was attached, with a couple of small stitches. this is finished. If you have any questions or if you want to show off your finished project, post it below, send me a message. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. I've also just started a Patreon, which I've also linked below. If you want to help with more of my art and my projects, and there's backer rewards, so please consider backing me. Thank you again. Till next time.